New cabinet listings just dropped at Arcade1up.com, and these look like a new product category. We've had XL, we've had Pro. These are Deluxe.
Hey, Brian. How you doing, buddy? It's Deluxe, son.
To be honest, this is what I have wanted to see from Arcade1up for a long time. I know some of you guys really like the riser, but I think this is a little bit more of a professional grade cabinet, and I'm only talking about the design because, as you'll see, you're still getting a 17-inch monitor. Isn't particularly larger. It's, I believe, just slightly taller. It's really the cabinet with more of an integrated riser design, but there's no riser. It's not one piece. You can tell there are multiple pieces here, but it's one large thing. It's not a thing that sits on another thing. I've thought the riser design forever. It just looks clunky. It looks a little bit cartoonish. This is a much more serious looking arcade, and look, we're finally getting, and now I'm hesitant to say this because it wouldn't be the first time they rendered it this way and built it differently, but if these are to be believed, we're finally getting the proper monitor angle, and it's flush with the control panel. I mean, why has that been so difficult to build? I don't understand, but it looks like we are actually getting it. These cabinets look really interesting to me based on their design, but let's go through them one by one. I don't have a lot of time here, and you guys can take a look at these pages yourselves. We don't have to go through every detail, but man, it's the design is really the star of these announcements. If you can call them announcements, they popped up on their website. I'm sure these are going to be showcased in trailers. I'm sure we're going to get more content around them, but look at that design finally. So this is the Miss Pac Deluxe. Not a fan of how many different types of arcade these guys are spitting out, but if they finally land on the right design, then good for them. I'm not sure that we've seen Dragon Buster before. I know I don't have that on any of my cabinets, but I haven't bought an Arcade1up for a while. But largely a pretty standard list. It is nice to see Dig Dug 1 and 2 on there. I have that on one of my cocktail cabinets, but nice to see it on a sit-up, or a stand-up rather. And let's take a look at the class of 81. I mean, for me, this would be the design. This is awesome. It's got the kick plate with the integrated artwork. This thing looks very close to the original. Very, very nice. And I felt like they really fell short on the design for the original class of 81 they had, which I didn't buy. Had I bought it, I'd be pretty irritated right now because this looks like the real deal. You know, again, pretty standard game list.
I am once again asking
for Arcade1up to include Splatterhouse in their Namco cabinets.
Tower of Draga, I don't think we've seen that before. King and Balloon, I don't think we've seen. I know we've seen Rolling Thunder, Rally X, and all that good stuff. So we're getting 12 titles, it looks like, in these arcades. But again, it's really all about that artwork. And the shell, the chassis of the cabinet. We're getting coin doors, which they've updated the design on yet again. I wish these guys would standardize on the design. But we're getting artwork up the entire panel, no interruptions, with a riser. Looking like a lot of screw holes, but what do we see here? These are screw hole covers. So these are really looking pro grade in design. However, clearly not pro grade in contents. We're getting that 17-inch monitor, and we're getting the real feel joystick and buttons. So there's nothing upgraded about this except the look. Of course, we can upgrade our buttons ourselves, but that the devil there is how much does it cost for the base cabinet? We do know, at least from, or we've heard from John D, I think recently, I read it somewhere, I didn't see the interview, but he was saying that the monitors going forward will all be IPS. There will not be any TN panels. Not that I would have expected this. I think they were only using those crappy panels in like the 19-inch screens that they did for the Golden Tee 3D. But nonetheless, we're getting an IPS monitor. That's not news. We're getting lame controls. That's not news. It is over 5 feet tall, so a little taller than the Arcade1up with a riser, I believe. And this one has 14 games, so I guess there's no hard limit on there being 12 titles. And let's look at this Midway cabinet. This looks nice. This looks very nice. Very nice. Anyway, let's look at the games list. So Paperboy, again, I don't care about Paperboy with the conventional joystick. Clax, I really like that game, so that's awesome. Tapper, Not great with conventional joysticks that aren't just vertical, but probably a lot easier to play than Paperboy. Tubin, a game I haven't played since the skating rink. Anyway, these are not new games, so that's the point. I think we've got a new form factor. Nothing would be stopping them from releasing a new cabinet here. Does this fix the challenges that are in front of Arcade1up? They can only release so many titles. We're seeing that. It's repeated. I don't know if you guys can hear this in the background, but I've got a puppy that's like going nuts on a piece of rope, and here we are. We're barely entertained by this nice arcade machine. Puts things in perspective. I think the design is great. I think they should have pivoted to this design a year or two into their life cycle. I get why they started with the riser. There were a few reasons they started with the riser. I think they stayed on it too long. I think this is more of a serious looking machine. I don't personally care a ton about 19 versus 17. You're standing close to the monitor. It just doesn't bother me that much. I'd like to see 19. But to me, for these smaller stand-up cabinets, 17 is acceptable. It's the cocktail cabinet where I'd like to see a 19 or 20 inch, but we don't get any cocktails here. We are getting a new and improved Arcade1up. This kind of reminds me of the legacy cabinets they did recently with, what was it, Centipede. I think they did a Pac-Man where they looked really realistic, but then they had that big old clunky riser on the bottom. So I'm excited what they come with next, but would I buy this? I don't think I would. I'm too invested in the riser ecosystem because they stayed there too long. I have like 14 cabinets, I think, or 13, whatever the number is, on risers. These are going to make those look dumb. The riser design does not look great. It just looks acceptable when they're just next to each other. You put them next to a real machine or even something like this, and they suddenly look like toys. And for that reason, I don't think I would buy one of these. But someone who's new to Arcade1up might. But this is going to appeal to a more hardcore buyer with its better design cues. I doubt someone who skipped Miss Pac-Man before, who's a casual buyer, is suddenly sold by the improved design. So probably you already have a Miss Pac, and is this worth upgrading? All that is to say, these guys should have come with this stuff sooner. I think they've tried to pace themselves with their design iteration and their game releases so they could add more years to the life of the company. Let's face it, there are only so many notable arcade machines they can re-release that they can get the rights for, that they can get into stores that retail cares about. There's just a limited number, and that's why we're seeing the same few licenses over and over. Mortal Kombat. I'm surprised they didn't throw Street Fighter in here. Probably at some point they will. It'll be yet another Street Fighter release. So I think it's a good thing. I applaud it. If this looks interesting to you, I hope it's a good product and you enjoy it. For me, I'd probably sit this out. At some point, if they release all their cabinets in this design, I would consider repurchasing some of the cabinets I really like, getting rid of permanently some of the cabinets that I don't play as much, and then having a better looking game room and get rid of the riser. But that's probably a ways off. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like these designs? Would you buy them? And what would the price be? I'm going to guess $5.99, which I also think would probably be a little too expensive to sell these in big numbers. But that's my guess, the number they're going to come with. Let me know what you think below, how much these will cost. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you're not yet, and I'll talk to you soon.